and thank you for joining us today in our free workshop about backend security. As you know, this workshop is brought to you by CodeLabs Academy, which is an online learning platform that offers highly interactive learning. It offers a variety of learning methods such as workshops and bootcamps in different domains like data science, cybersecurity, web development, and UI/UX design. Let me now introduce myself. So I'm Emel. I'm working as a cybersecurity instructor and bootcamp lead at CLA, and I'm studying a master's degree in computer science at the University of Paris. And here's my LinkedIn account. If you want to contact me or ask me any question, please go ahead. Something about our next session we're gonna offer. So it will be about the blue team track. So as you know, in cybersecurity, we have two sides or two sections. First one is about red teaming, everything about offensive security, attacking, pen testing, etc. The second one is about blue teaming, or what we call defensive security. So the next track we're gonna offer is about blue team track. It will be starting on the 7th of November. The format is part-time. We will have to study for 4 sessions each week with a duration of 6 weeks. Time zone is, of course, Central European time zone. If you have any question on how to register or some of the other details, we're gonna offer an info session on the 19th of October. So yeah, you can join us to have more details about that. Some information about CLA. So yeah, as you see here, we are offering live teaching, which means you will come to the sessions. The sessions are not like recorded such the other boot camps. No, you will come and you will have live teaching. The teacher will be with you, like explaining the lesson, and you will attend with all your other classmates. Yeah, so that you can understand well the lesson, ask your questions on any specific detail, and the teacher will be glad to answer you at that moment. The second thing is about we are offering one-on-one support coaching, which means whenever you are encountering any difficulties installing a software, understanding homework, or maybe anything about the course, you will have the ability to ask for a session with one of our teaching assistants. And yeah, he will be glad to have a session only with you and fix all your problems. Our boot camps are beginner friendly. So yeah, whenever your level in cybersecurity or any other boot camp, you can join us and you can learn with our materials. We offer also full-time and part-time boot camps depending on the session we will offer, and of course it will be remote. And wherever you are not able, for example, to attend one of our sessions, you will have the recording to catch up with your classmates. Yeah, some news that we will be opening is that we are offering 2 other bootcamps, one about the front-end development and the other that I presented before, the Blue Team Cybersecurity Bootcamp. So yeah, the addition here is that we are offering the front-end development, everything about HTML, CSS, React, and JavaScript. So yeah, if you are willing to start a front-end web development career, this is for you, and it's a short bootcamp just for 6 weeks, and we will make sure that you will cover everything related to front-end development. So yeah, if you are interested in that, please don't hesitate and contact us. Some great news from CodeLabs Academy is that we are opening soon the Berlin campus, which means we will be offering our bootcamps in person at the heart of Germany. Yeah, the official opening day is set to January 2023, and yeah, we will keep you updated about that. Okay, now let's jump to our workshop today about backend security. So yeah, as you know, security on the internet is more important now than ever before. When building a mobile application, constructing a website, or doing any business online, it's important to have security protocols in place to avoid major data breaches and some other attacks. And the research, in fact, showed that 70% of known attacks occurred in what is known as backend. So this certainly highlights the importance of the backend security. And as you know, in backend security, we have a lot of vulnerabilities, a lot of attacks, but specifically for this workshop, we're gonna focus only on the XXE injection attack, and we will describe how this attack works, how to exploit the XXE vulnerabilities, and we will solve the challenge at the end of this workshop as a practical section to help you understand more how to perform this attack. And in order to understand the XXE injection attack, we need some basics from the XML language. So yeah, we will have an introduction to the XML language, since it is the basic part to understand how to or how the XXE attack works. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so this is a definition about the XML language. So yeah, XML is just the abbreviation of extensible markup language, which is a set of tags and codes that help carry the data presented on the website. And XML does not define how the data is displayed. Instead, it just transports it. Okay, so yeah, just make sure to understand the difference here, that XML is not responsible for displaying the data as the front end. No, it's responsible for transporting this data from or between the backend and the front end of the application. And XML is not a programming language. The main goal is to transport data and not to display the information. And this extensible markup language bridges the gap between human readability and machine readability. Why? Because unlike HTML tags, XML tags are self-descriptive. And what we mean by that is, you know, when you are coding in HTML, you have predefined tags, for example, the body, the head, the footer, and maybe other inner tags, for example, the div, the spam, etc. And you cannot add your self-defined tags, or you cannot like define them and then use them. No, in HTML we have predefined tags and we are obliged to use only these tags. But in XML, we can define our tags, like our personal tags. For example, if you want to define a tag with a name, address, email, whatever, you can define these tags and then use them in your XML code. Okay, so yeah, that's the difference between these two, and we're gonna see other differences in the next slides. Okay, now let's take a look at some of the features of the XML. The first one is about extensible and human readable. So yeah, most XML applications will work as expected even if data is added. Okay, so even if we add new data, the XML applications will still be working because we are allowing adding extra data. Okay, second one is about overall simplicity. So XML simplifies data sharing, data transport, platform changes, and data availability. And XML makes it easier to extend or upgrade to new operating systems, new applications, or new browsers without losing data. So data can be available to a variety of reading machines, such as people, computers, voice machines, news feeds, and so on. The next one is about separating data from HTML. So data can be saved in different XML files using XML. This way, you can concentrate on using HTML or CSS for displaying the layout, while knowing that changes to the underlying data will not require HTML changes. Okay, and the last feature is about allowing XML validation. Here, we mean by XML validation using a DTD or document type definition. which will be used to validate an XML document. And this ensures that the XML document is syntactically valid and prevents any problems from arising from a faulty XML. And we're gonna see this DTD concept in the next slides. Let's now define some of the differences between HTML and XML, because some of you already know what HTML is and coded in some of the HTML files. So yeah, this will help you understand the difference between HTML and XML. So as you can see here, HTML is markup language that focuses on how the data appears. So yeah, HTML is responsible for the front end of the application. It will focus only on how the data is appearing, how we are rendering the forms, the button, etc. But XML is focusing on what the data is, the type of the data, and how we are manipulating this data. For example, transporting the data between the front end and the back end. If the user is typing in input, so XML files are responsible for taking this input from the front end entered by the user and then taking it to the back end. For example, storing it in a database, or maybe doing some operations on this input. So it depends on the purpose of your application. And yeah, as I said before, HTML has predefined tags of its own, so we can use only these predefined tags. We cannot add our personal tags, but in XML, we will define the tags that we're gonna use in our application in a file, a separate file, and then we will be able to use them in our XML files. Yeah, HTML is used to present data, so it is static, but XML is dynamic, okay? So we can add other fields, other elements, and other tags, and of course adding other data to our files. HTML is not case sensitive, and yeah, XML is case sensitive, just some differences between the two of them. And HTML is containing a large amount of data because it's responsible for displaying the data to the screen, so it is a large document. But XML is defining only what are the data that we are transporting. That's why it's smaller. Okay, now let's take a look at the format of the XML files and what makes you sure that this file is about an XML file and not any other type of files. So what you can see here is just the XML file format. So this is the format of the XML file. It should start with XML and then the version, the encoding format, just like HTML. And then here we will define some of the tags. First tag, for example, which is the parent tag, what we call here the root. And inside this tag, we will be able to define some children's. Okay, this is the first child, for example. And inside each child, we can define sub-children's. Okay, and we should, when we open a tag like that, we should close it with this syntax. It's just the same as HTML. This is an example. Yeah, so after defining this version and encoding format, we will define the first tag, for example, employee here. And inside employee, as you can see, we have three elements. First one is first name with this value, which is John. Second one is about last name and the value and then the title. So inside this element, which is the parent element here, we have three children's or three other elements inside it. Some other specifications that we can add to XML files are the attributes. For example, if you have an employee element and you want to add some specifications to this element, for example, the ID, the age, nationality, I don't know, name, or maybe other static attributes or static values, you can add them with the definition of the element like that. And yeah, defining their values, and it will be like specifying this element. Another example with the division here, we are defining it with the size 3. So yeah, this is the attribute of this element. Okay. Now, another concept that we should understand in order to understand the XXT injection attack is the DTD. So, what is this DTD? Well, DTD is the document type definition. It defines the structure and the legal elements and attributes of an XML document. So, with the DTD, groups of people or developers can agree on what the XML file should look like, and this will help facilitate data structure for interchanging data. Also, an application can use this DTD to verify that the XML data is in the proper format. In addition, a DTD file can be either defined internally within the XML document or externally from an external file from a URI or a URL. And again, this just helps a developer to look at the XML file and read it and say, hey, this is the proper format it's supposed to be in. Let's see now some of the examples of an internal and an external DTD. So this is a format of an internal DTD. So here is just the part of the XML file. Why we call it internal DTD? Because we are not creating a separate file. No, the DTD section is just at the beginning of our XML file. So we will have everything in just one file. Okay, so this section is about the DTD section at the beginning of the file, and then we will be defining our XML code. Okay, so yeah, here the XML code, we are defining the message elements. Inside it, we are just defining 3 elements, 2, from, and subject, and we are closing the parent element. How we should define this format of our XML section is only with the DTD definition here. So yeah, this is just the definition of the XML file, and then we should start with this syntax, okay? Exclamation mark, doc type, and then message. This message is just defining the elements, okay? The element of this message here that we're having here. And then to define the elements that should be inside the message element, we will put them between 2 parentheses like that, 2, from, and then subject. So the message element will contain these 3 elements inside it, okay? And after defining the parent element, we will define the children's one by one, okay? Because they are also elements. So yeah, with this way, we'll define the 2, the from, and the subject elements. And in addition to that, we should define the type of these elements. For example, when we say that it is PC data, it's only about string or characters, okay? So it's about text elements. And of course, we have other tags. For example, if we define hashtag required, in addition to that, these 2 elements will be required. Whenever we declare the message element, we must declare the 2 elements because it's required. If it's not, we can define not required. And yeah, just as specifications for each element. An example for the external DTD. So yeah, as I said, the external DTD is when we write the DTD like definition in a separate file. It will be separate from the XML code. And yeah, this is an example for the XML file, okay? Yeah, and how we say that the DTD file or where it is located is just about defining the location to the file, whether it is local file. So here we will define the location to this file in our computer, or if the file is in another server, we will set here the URL to access to this file. So yeah, defining the system key element here will give us the path or the location to our file. And then we will define the rest of our XML file after the definition of the DTD, okay? Another important thing to understand is the entities of the document type definition. And yeah, so what are the entities and why we need to understand them? So an entity is a mechanism to define replacement values where an entity name is declared, and when that name is referenced, the entity value is read in its place. I like to think to entities as coding variables. When you are programming, for example, you might declare a variable as name, and then you might give that variable the value of Bob. So it's kind of like that with entities. So we are kind of creating variables within an XML document, okay? And then when you call this entity, it will just give its value. So just understand that entities are exactly like variables. And an entity can be declared either internally and externally from a URL as well. So it's exactly as the DTD. So let's take a look at an internal entity. So here it is, the syntax of the entity. So yeah, you should start with an exclamation mark, entity word, and then the name of your entity and the value you are giving it. So here are some of the examples. Here we are defining the entity email. We are giving it this value. Another entity is writer. And yeah, we can call entities inside our document type definition. Okay. For example, here we are calling the entity email, and the syntax to call any entity is by starting with an and sign like that, the name of the entity, which is email in this case, and then you must end it with a semicolon, okay? That way you will call the entity. And the value of this entity writer will be hacker, and then this email address, because this entity will be replaced with its value. And of course, we can call entities inside our XML file. For example, here we are having the author element, and the author element will be the entity author. For example, we are defining it before. Okay, so this will replace the value of the author entity. Now let's jump into the XXE attack and try to understand it deeply. So yeah, XXE is just about XML external entity. So yeah, it's sometimes called an XXE injection attack, and it's a type of attack that abuses a widely available but rarely used feature of XML parsers. So using XXE, an attacker is able to cause denial of service, DOS, as well as access local and remote content and services. So XXE can be used to perform server-side request forgery, which is the SSRF attack, including the web application to make requests to other applications. In some cases, XXE may even enable port scanning and lead to remote code execution. So yeah, with that way you can understand the importance of securing your application against this type of attack. Yeah, so let's see now these examples that I have prepared to understand more how we are performing the XXE attack. So this is an example of an HTTP request. Yeah, what we mean by HTTP request is just the code or the data that we are sending or receiving. In this case, it's a post HTTP request, which means we are sending data to the server. And yeah, here is the URL where we are sending our data, the version of the HTTP. And then here you can see the XML code. For example, we are having only a full element, as you can see, with the value hello world. If this HTTP request will be executed correctly, well, what I mean by correctly is without having any errors, and the server is not secured against XXE, we will have a result for example, this HTTP request, which is the result of the execution of this first one, and the XML file will be executed, and we will have the element of, or the value of our element foo, hello world, okay, with a status of OK, which means the HTTP request was successfully executed. Another example is to show that the XXE attack is based on the DTD elements, okay? So we will define the DTD entities first, and then we will use them. And these DTD elements will give us access to some files, so we can read some files, whatever you have the location of the file, you can locate them in the DTD entity definition. And yeah, with that, you will just call the entity in the XML part, and you will have the result of it after executing the HTTP request, okay? So for example, this is a post HTTP request, and yeah, we are defining here DTD, the element which is foo, okay? And here we are defining an entity with the name bar, and here we are defining the value of this entity. Then in the XML part, we are calling our entity with an end sign here, the name of the entity, and a semicolon. After executing this HTTP request, and as said before, the server or the web application is not secured against the XXE attack, we will have a result for this execution, and the result will be hello world, because the entity will be replaced with its value. Another example is while we are opening a file and having its contents, being able to read the content of a file in our web application. So yeah, here we are defining as before the XXE entity, the same thing, so it's just the DTD definition, and the difference is with this entity we are calling a file, or we are trying to open this file with the system word here, the key word here is system, and then here we should define the location of the file. And yeah, the file or the file here password has a default location, which is in the /etc/password file, okay? If you call this entity here and the HTTP request will get executed correctly, you will have the content of this file, which is really a confidential file that shouldn't be accessed by anyone. Okay, so it should be accessed only by admin users of your web application. So if an attacker will get access to this password file, he will be able to see the users of your system and having the hash of their passwords, okay? So yeah, by opening the shadow file or maybe doing some other manipulations, he will be able to have some credentials of your users, which is really dangerous part of the XXE attack. Another example is when you have the location of the file, you can open it exactly as we did with the password file. So for example, the secret file. So yeah, you did some pen testing before and you figured out that you have a file called secret located in this URL. So all what you need to do is to check whether the web application you are testing is vulnerable to XXE. If yes, you will try to open this file performing an XXE injection attack, creating an entity with name XXE, and yeah, locating the file, given the URL of the file, and then calling the entity. After that, when you execute this request, you will have the content of this file. Maybe this file will contain passwords, maybe it will contain some private keys, so who knows. Okay, so having the access to this file will give you much more advantages on the web application. Let's go to practice a little bit with an example. So this is a challenge from the TryHackMe platform. And yeah, what you can see here is the comment section of a web page. So the comment sections are generally vulnerable to XXE attacks, since you can inject some code here, send it to the server, and have a reflection here, because when you enter a comment, generally in the web applications, and you click submit, you will have a reflection of your comment, or you will have your comment posted in the web application or in the web page, sorry. So yeah, that will be the first section to check in any web application you are pen testing. So for example, here, if I type test, I hit submit. Yeah, here it will ask me for credentials that I entered before. Okay, let's just redo it. If I type tests, I submit, you will see here that we have comment preview. We have name, author, and then comments. This will give us the idea to write an XML code containing these three elements, okay? Name, author, and comments. And if we try that, we're gonna see the results or the reflection of that. So let me just give you an example for that, just to test whether this web application is vulnerable to the XXE attack or not. So this is an example having the name, author, and then comment. Okay, and yeah, all of this should be inside the comment, because all of this is considered as one comment of one user. That's why we are putting the three elements inside the comments parent element. Okay, if I hit submit, you can see we have a reflection. The name is Toto as we have defined it in the XML code, the author, and also the comments. Okay, if we try this with Burpsuit, just to see the request that will be generated, the HTTP request that I showed you before in the slides. So yeah, here I need to open the browser, which will be like related only to Burpsuit, not Firefox one. And yeah, here I'll just copy the link to the web page. Okay, I set intercept to off to give me access to enter my credentials. Okay, and yeah, here I'm admin. Okay, the same thing. So here I'm just pasting the code that I had before, and before clicking on submit, I will reset the intercept to on to catch the HTTP request before sending it to the server. Okay, so when this request will get sent or will be generated, I will have its content here. Okay, so if I click on submit, as you can see, here is the request. Here's the request generated. So it's a post request, of course, because we are sending data to the server. Here is the host with the IP address, the port number, etc. And here are just some details about the request generated. The most important part is about this part here. So here is the XML code that will be generated. And yeah, it's the same one that we have here. It's just about another format, okay? Yeah, as you can see here comment section, or the comment element. You can see the author element right here. So yeah, this format is just replacing the spaces that you can see here, spaces, because here we have a space, etc. So yeah, it's just another format, but it's the same XML code. If I hit on off, this request will get send it to the server, and we will have a reflection here, okay, as the result of the execution of our HTML request. The next thing that we're gonna test is just to open the password file. If we have access to that, we will be able to see the content of the password file. Okay, it's the same thing that I showed you before in the slides. So yeah, we are defining an element, and we are defining an entity called XXE, and we are calling it right here in the name element. and this entity is just opening the file password. Okay, I will intercept the request. Yeah, the request is being generated properly. Then if I hit enter, you can see here the content of this password file. Okay, we have here Barry, which is a username for our system. We have another username, Joe, and we have the root username, as you can see here. So it's a Linux system having two usernames, Joe and Barry. Okay, the next step that we should do is just to try to have the private key of the user Barry. I tried with Barry. You can try with Joe next time. So yeah, trying with Barry, and yeah, let me just paste it here so you can see. Okay, so here is the request or the XML code responsible for that. So yeah, we are defining an entity, and this entity will have this location, because as you know, in the Linux system we have a default location for storing the private key of our users. So the default location will be inside the home directory, then inside the username. For example, if my username is ML, I will enter here ML, okay? But since we are searching for the private key of the user Barry, we will enter here Barry, then by default is inside .ssh folder, and then the file is called ID_RSA. With that, if we are able to open this file, we will have the content of the private key of the algorithm RSA used for the protocol SSH, specific for the user Barry. Okay, so if this request will be executed properly, we will have the private key of the user Barry. Okay, so let me just paste it here and click on submit. But before that, okay, here is the XML code. If I click on submit, here is the XML code generated, and after that we will have the private key, as you can see here, begin RSA private key, and here is the content of our private key. Okay, the private key of the user Barry. After having the private key of a user, you can imagine what things you can do with this private key. Okay, so which is really dangerous, because the private key is something confidential that only the user will have access to. So if we are able now to read the private key of the user Barry, we can do some damage on the target server. Okay, so yeah, that's it. I think that we have presented everything. Thank you for joining us today for this workshop, and see you on the next workshop.